So your boy Luke, the big Chungus Stevens, which yes, they do call me that. Who's they? Not important. They featured your boy in an Assassin's Creed Shadows Tech Q&A article. Now, it's way less interesting than it sounds. Basically, all this means is that they sent out an email asking if we had any questions about the technical side of AC Shadows, and I gave them like 6-7 questions. I gave them a bunch. But the one that they picked was, will the game be Steam Deck verified at launch? And they said at launch, the game will not be compatible with Steam Deck due to the fact that it is below our minimum specs for PC, which when I asked the question, we didn't know what those specs were. And after seeing this, I mean, you can understand why. Even at 720p, you know, this is on Mac because yes, the game is coming to Mac. They do have estimated like performance stats and metrics on this. I'm amazed it's coming to Mac anyways, but hey, if you wanted to play the game at 1080p 30, you can probably play it. I think my MacBook Pro has an M2
Yarmouth donated
Pro.
$20 through Super Chat.
So I got 720p. So in addition to my question about optimization and all that, they answered a bunch of other ones. So, you know, about DLSS, they asked questions about graphical options to improve performance on a semi-high-end budget gaming PC. So, you know, they show low settings, high, and ultra settings. They ask about customization of HUD. They ask about all this stuff, which I think being this clear and this candid with this stuff is great. You know, I'd much rather know about all this stuff ahead of time than find out when the game launches and be like, oh, I had no idea that the game was going to be this heavy. You know, I'd rather they give people the heads up. I think a lot of gamers will still play it anyways and then be frustrated when it's heavy, but at least there's going to be some people that look at this and they're like, you know what? I don't want to play this with these specs. I'm going to have to play it 1080p 60. I don't want to play it at 1080p. Bear in mind, this is using dynamic resolution and upscaling. So this is already using that, meaning to get this with a 6700 or a 3060 Ti, using that, rendering internally at like 640p or whatever, it's upscaling to 1080. Like that's real heavy, man. That's real heavy. So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be real, fam. I think that these specs are not as great as I was hoping for. Now, when I played it at the preview event, it did look really good. It was very pretty, but a 3060 Ti, a 3080, like these using upscaling technologies to hit 60 frames at these lower reses, that's a little underwhelming, I think, in terms of optimization. Now it is scalable. They are showing it running on like Mac hardware, so that is crazy. I mean, I'm shocked. But allegedly it can run on Mac as well. Not particularly great, but they've scaled it over there as well. But it's going to be a heavy game, and they're kind of unapologetic with it, which to a certain extent I can respect. But I feel like a boomer. I don't like that it's become so normalized to bundle in upscalers. And in this case, I don't think they're using frame generation in these estimations. Otherwise they would have said it, but there's been other games that have been like, yeah, with frame generation and upscalers, you can achieve 1440p at 60 with this graphics card. And that's ridiculous to me. I'm like, upscalers and frame generation might eventually get to the point where it's indistinguishable from native, but I think we all can tell the difference. Oh, my third camera's not working. Anyway, it's just not, it's not there yet. And you can tell, like we've all seen the games that are super upscaled and they just don't look that sharp. Sure, technically the signal might be 4K, but I encourage you to go back and you try a game from like 5 years ago, run it native 1440p, native 4K. And it will look better than if you run it at 4K with like quality DLSS on with a newer title. Like it's just, I'm very frustrated by the mainstream push of DLSS because I feel like it's making every game just run like ass and then look blurry, and it triggers me is what I'm saying. I get triggered. Yeah. I understand why these marketing teams really love the push for ray tracing, because it makes still shots look really good, and that's absolutely true. But it's a video game we're talking about. It's not a photo mode simulator. I mean, that's a component of it. But just because ray traced reflections make water reflections look really good, or windows and reflections like that look really good, or shadows underneath canopies, yeah, it makes that stuff look really good. But at the end of the day, I would much prefer sharpness. Give me sharpness, man. Come on. So what's in there for PS5 Pro? That's a good question. Let us see. With this, in terms of performance, do the PS5 and Xbox Series X versions have a 60 FPS mode? They say yes. Rapid confirmed that both the PS5 and Series X will allow players to play at 4K 60, upscaled in performance mode. More details on the modes will come and be shared closer to launch. And so then they ask about ray trace global illumination. They ask about the Atmos tool for weather systems. Selective ray tracing, what does that mean? Can we choose to enable or not enable ray tracing? They say this mode uses ray tracing only within the hideout portion of the game. The reason behind this is that the hideout allows extensive player customization at a level never seen before in AC. Because of that, we cannot use traditional pre-calculated global illumination techniques, and therefore need to adopt a real-time approach. In all other gameplay situations, such as the open world, ray tracing will not be used. Oh, interesting. So you remember... Oh, it's gonna make me give. Oh, come on. You remember the hideout clips that they had? They're gonna use ray tracing when you go there, but then if you want to play the game, it doesn't use ray tracing. Huh. I can't. Huh. I understand what he's saying. He's like, we can bake it into the world, and so you can effectively turn ray tracing off there. But when you go to the base, because you're moving buildings around, because you are customizing light sources yourself, because you're doing all of that, we can't bake that stuff in. So that stuff has to be done real time. So that specific area of the game will be ray traced, but everything else will not be. So could that not lead to situations where you get to the hideout and the hideout runs like ass, but then the open world and regular gameplay runs well? I mean, I think you'd have to have stuff like dynamic resolution. You'd have to have stuff like that to level it out on console. Like, imagine the Series S trying to ray trace the hideout. I don't know how that would work. Dexter, thank you for the sub with Prime, my friend. Didn't we have a base building long before ray tracing? Well, yeah, but the point is, like, what you see in the gameplay snippets and in the videos and stuff, what you see is effectively globally illuminated set pieces and stuff. But they're saying in the open world, they can bake in all this lighting. They can bake in all this stuff. But because everything is static, they can do that. But once you go to the hideout, moving it all around, you can't bake it anymore. And in like Valhalla, of course, they didn't have that stuff. They didn't have ray traced stuff baked in, or rather global illumination baked in, even though it's not ray traced, you get what I mean. It's global illumination. They didn't have that, so you could just move stuff around, didn't affect it. You can place buildings and upgrade them, whatever. But the other piece of it too is that what they're doing in Shadows is like a fully customizable grid-based base building thing. So it's way more dynamic than what they did in like Valhalla. What they did in Valhalla was just kind of like, you select this plot and it upgrades to that. So they probably could bake stuff there. What you said was that's exactly what's going to happen. You can either have the whole game running like ass or only the hideout running like ass. Regardless, it's going to run like ass. You just decide how much ass you want. I mean, you're not wrong. That's basically what it is. Buff Dog, thank you for the sub with Prime as well, my friend. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I don't know. That's a really interesting thing. I'm surprised to hear that it's just not going to use ray tracing stuff in the base, but everywhere else you can turn it off. I don't think I've ever seen that before, where you can't turn ray tracing off in this one area, but you can turn it off everywhere else. That's very interesting. Other stuff they mention, so DLSS, it'll support DLSS or FSR. It supports all the technologies mentioned here. 3.7, FSR 3.1, XeSS2 are all supported for upscaling and frame generation. Our own temporal AA solution is also available. Note that a mix and match option or approach is possible. You may select one technology to upscale while using a different technology for frame generation. That's kind of cool. I don't know when you would ever use that, but you could use FSR to upscale and then DLSS frame gen or vice versa. That's weird. Huh. And then graphics options, as you would expect, HUD customization, there's a lot of it. Colorblind options, guidance, controls, gameplay options, special audio things as well to help people. Graphical customization options such as FOV. Yes, FOV can be tweaked from 85% to 115. On PC as well, motion blur can be toggled on or off. Anti-aliasing can be controlled through the upscale option, and native anti-aliasing can be selected. It will not be Steam Deck verified. Mike Labs, is AC Shadows going to be natively available on Mac? Yep. Jor Raptor. Oh, baby. Jor's here. This is also really interesting. So Jor asked a very good question. I also asked this one. But they picked Jor's version of the question, probably because it was worded better, frankly. He asked, do we need the Ubisoft launcher if we buy the game on Steam? That's a good question. That's a good ass question. They said, launching the game through Steam doesn't require you to download and install the Ubisoft Connect launcher, as the Steam installation already includes a light embedded version of it. You simply need to link your Ubisoft Connect account to Steam. As AC Shadows comes with cross-save and cross-progression features, linking your Ubisoft Connect account allows us to provide you with seamless experience no matter where you play. So, I mean, as you'd expect, Ubisoft Connect is tied to cloud saves and their reward system, all that. For those without Ubisoft Connect account, you can easily create one on the first launch and link it with your Steam account. This one-time setup ensures you won't need to log in again. So you connect your Ubisoft Connect account to Steam, and then because it uses a light embedded version of Ubisoft Connect, I would take from this that you hit play and it just boots into the game. But then it shares your cloud saves through Ubisoft Connect, which is kind of running under the hood. I don't think this means that you hit play and it launches Ubisoft Connect, because they're not saying it requires Ubisoft Connect. It's a light embedded version built into the game. So I think that's a W. I think. Will it support cross-platform progression or cross-save? Yes, cross saves are supported, which is true. It's also true of some of the other games, which is awesome. So I think that's great. You can play on PC, pick it up on the Xbox or PS5, whatever you're playing on. That's always cool. Dynamic weather questions. How much additional stress has the addition of destructible environments placed on the CPU, if any? Let's see. It does add an undeniable cost on that. In Anvil, we combine objects automatically as part of our build generation process into a single object, which limits CPU processing costs, as a single object within the engine represents maybe a dozen objects in the world. While this approach allowed us to have dense open worlds, most of the objects end up being static or very limited interactivity. We've solved this problem in AC Shadows by dynamically removing object from the optimized batches at runtime when we detect a condition that needs to awake a dynamic object. This might sound simple, but given the complexity of the merging system and the number of complex destruction sources, this was quite the endeavor. Furthermore, we have offset this increased cost in Physics Sim by leveraging more and more of our GPU instance renderer, which is our cutting edge system to submit objects to the GPU for rendering, which in the past was a huge burden on the CPU. I'm not smart enough for this. I'm not equipped for that. Like, oh, so you can break stuff now, is what I took from that. That's where I'm at. As for PS5 Pro specifically, there is no mention in the article of the Pro. If you search for the PS5 Pro, it does not pop up. What if I just search Pro? Program approach. Oh, God. No. I'm guessing, based on how they answered the question about console performance, I'm guessing that, as they say, they're going to share more details about the console performance options later, closer to launch. So I would assume that probably we find out about the PS5 Pro variant closer to launch. That's my guess. They've already, I think, confirmed that it'll be PS5 Pro optimized, but what that means, who knows? That could just mean, oh, it runs at a slightly higher internal resolution, but I mean, we don't know. Like, it could be the difference between like, oh, it runs on effectively FSR quality instead of FSR balanced, but we don't know. All of this to say, Shadows is heavy. It's certainly a looker. It looks very, very good, but she heavy, and you got to have the hardware to run it. But the weirdest takeaway from all of that is that it is going to run with, you can turn off ray tracing everywhere except for the hideout, which I think on some systems will mean, like if you're on a lower end system, you're going to play the game and it'll run pretty well out in the open world. Maybe you're even getting like 60 frames, but then you go to the hideout and it drops to like 20, which is going to be interesting because again, I can't think of another time where a game has just had that big of a difference in areas, which is very interesting. It's about persistence, as are most things. You're right. It is about persistence. It's just a very interesting compromise, maybe, to make. Modders to the rescue. Yeah. I mean, I think it seems like they've just removed the ability to just rasterize it. Or maybe the difference between rasterized rendering and stuff, between that and then using the global illumination solutions with the ray tracing. Maybe it was just such a graphical difference that they're like, we can't do it. You got to have some level of it. Otherwise it looks like a different game, but very interesting. Very interesting. So there you go.